Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I don't have too much to talk about here at the beginning again. I've liked kind of just diving into the questions after doing the Patreon shoutouts as we usually do. I do want to say that on Twitter, I teased the idea of potentially doing more vlog-style videos. I guess kind of just stating my thoughts on certain things a little bit more frequently, or providing some video coverage of when I go to events, even if I'm traveling just within the States, or even just posting some videos of Aloha. More, I guess, life-oriented videos, I suppose, that aren't just games. And I know the logo's always been all gaming all the time, but I found that maybe there's an unhealthy balance in that, and I'm looking to expand a little bit more. So I guess letting you guys, not into my life necessarily more, but into my I guess things that I just don't post about on YouTube, things you might find on other social media like Twitter or Instagram that you here on YouTube kind of just don't get to enjoy. So I'm considering that, at the very least, maybe post an Aloha video. I never really made a video explaining why or how I ended up with Aloha, but that's, at the very least, that's what we're looking for. So just wanted to do that quick announcement. Now let's go to the Patreon shoutouts. For those of you who don't know, over on Patreon, people support me through hashtag demonetized here on YouTube, where it's been increasingly difficult to earn an income. I'm sure if you follow a bunch of YouTubers, it's not the first time that you've heard of it, but I do want to say right now it's actually doing okay. It has its on months and it has its off months. It depends on who pisses off the advertisers on YouTube on any given month, but that's a video for another time. But we got to thank them because they've been supporting me monetarily through making any sorts of various content that I have on the channel. So first we have our Patrons of Light. These are people who have been supporting above and beyond compared to everyone else. Not that I don't appreciate all of you, but they're doing a lot, and I got to give them a special shout out for that. We got Khuja Cross on Jenova, who got me a new screenshot. I got your email, Khuja. Thank you. And of course, Kurenai Oni, who have actually been doing a playthrough of Borderlands 1 with, as well with Sly and Fusion from Gamer Escape. So that's been fun. Been thinking about posting a few highlights of that to YouTube as well, but haven't had the time to do it. So thank you to our Patrons of Light for going above and beyond to support the channel over on Patreon. We also have our incredibly long list of sponsors that only gets longer, mostly because there's some names on here that shouldn't be here, but I keep forgetting to remove them, and I don't know them off the top of my head. So I'm just going to read whatever's here. We have our standard sponsors here from Mondays with Mr. Happy. We have Sana Arashiro of Brynhildr, Kromgar Holzborgson of Gilgamesh, Kevin Wabatalia, Alma Elma, Dark Lumina from Jenova, Marianne, Ramil Gaming, Sabo Empire, Mizra, Red Wings of the Baron FC from Zalera, Cidus, Oreo and Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, That Lame Weeb, Ashen Emiya of Cerberus, Fafarian, Rendil, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. Whew, just got through the first part. We have our elite Mondays with Mr. Happy sponsors. We got Batar Garl, we have Yufu Hikenshi on Excalibur, we got Scumlord, Itsumi Amaryu of Gilgamesh, Ravik, Card Drakens from Famfrit, Sigurdrag from Balmung, Edgefair on Ultras, Jerica, Emma, Zernik Borg 13, Krista Izuki, Crazed Demeter from Midgar, Rajaventinus from Cactar, Carol, Serafina Edelise, which they made sure to tell me how to pronounce that. I actually have the pronunciation specifically so I don't say Italis, which is how I would definitely go to say it the first time. Senchi, Shadowlink on Tonberry, Dom, Asuka Wake from Jenova, Limilla Nelhah of Maker's Armor, Sarah and the Fennel Family, Janhyua Yotsuyu, Kifkin the Great Eagles on Exodus, Kadayoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rylanator Westaus The Purple Warrior, Yadric Red Steel on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiark, Sour Cream and Chives from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Goisha Valfer of Siren, Phoenix NFC on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiark. Finally, we have our premium Mondays with Mr. Happy sponsors. We got Shauna Senpai of Behemoth, Zosame Hasha of Famfrit, Beatriz, Kazuzu, Fapatiyama of Diablo, Shadow Ari of Brynhildr, Zeravira of Coworld, Alchemy Shinko, Casual Heroes FC on Midgard's Armor, Tatachitaka on Hyperion, Kane Izuki from Jenova, Ustarla on Coworld, Stal, Sarah Frost of Behemoth, Holy Tabasco, Crass015, Serenity FC on Ultras, Kat Kazuma, Ignis Vanguard from Excalibur, Blester of Famfrit, Not Quarters from Excalibur, Krobus Moonscar, Private Maki, Nani Karasami, Rudy Rudiger, Kilak Manuel Jr., and Kiltastic Jones. So thank you for supporting the stream. Month after month. I guess not the stream. Patreon's really just for the YouTube. It's not for the Twitch stream. Anyway, thank you. Let's answer some questions under the YouTube video. Remember, if you've got a question for next week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy, throw that in the comment section, and I'll look through them and pick a few, and then we'll answer them. So, let's get started. All right, we got numero uno. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. So, an hour before making this question, I beat DMC3 on hard mode. I guess that you would mean Son of Sparta, because that's what hard mode would be. And struggled to beat Virgil with barely any health left. So this question might seem a tad ridiculous, but how do you get so good at DMC? I'm struggling to get my first taste of Dante Must Die, and surprised at how quickly things double trigger. So how do you do it? So first of all, I'd like to say I'm not by any means a master of Devil May Cry games. I'm just very persistent at playing very hard games until I'm good enough to get through them, especially Devil May Cry games, because I love them. I will say DMC 3, even on the most standard difficulty, is one of the hardest Devil May Cry games, if not the hardest Devil May Cry game of the bunch. And so, to be fair, you are jumping into the deep end, no doubt, with DMC 3. That being said, I mean, it's kind of the same answer as you get good at anything. You just practice. Some people have a natural propensity for things like this, for games that play like this. I'd say I at least lean a little bit more towards having a propensity for it without being absolutely masterful. But it's just, dude, I've played it since I was really young. So even if I don't play the Devil May Cry games for a while, once I come back to them and I get a day or two on them, it's all comes back to me, like how I want to do things, what certain abilities do, what combos do, and I can pick up a new Devil May Cry game relatively easily. We got the next one. This one's from only 8 hours ago. Hey, Haps, we have a really belated welcome back from Japan. Listen, I wish I was still there, but I got a girlfriend, I got a cat, and I care about both of them, so I can't spend all my time in Japan. Me in 2010, we have 2010, wear a male Makote. Me in 2019, we have 2019, wear a male Vieira. Feels bad, man. That was my first thought about the Genderlock 5.0, but enough of that. How to end single target Doton ninjas. How to end them. Isn't it good again? It's gone back and forth, this expansion, with Tenchi Jin. Now, there are people who just single target Doton over and over again, and that's bad. But from last I remember, I'd have to Google it, because feel free to correct me in the comment section for anyone who does main ninja. But doesn't the Tenchi Jin opener as a 4.5 use Doton? I'm pretty sure it does as the final bit from that with the enhanced potency. I don't know. It might depend on team combat. It very much depends on fight, but I'm pretty sure that with the Tenchi Jin opener, Doton is still, it's worth it. And then of course on AoEs, no one's ever gonna argue that. So I don't think it's a matter of ending them. I think it's good right now, just only under Tenchi Jin. All right, next question. Quick one. Hello to you too. Your opinion on cosmetic mods, both safe for work and not. So here's the weird thing, because my answer to this question is not consistent with my view on other tools that people use. I'm of the opinion in terms of graphic mods, who the hell are you bothering? Just don't put it on my Twitter feed. Fold. It's definitely not the same mentality I have in regards to ACT, where I absolutely despise when people use it to call every mechanic in a fight. Oh, it gets just, I just have no, when someone who has that still screws up the mechanic, I'm like, listen, I got nothing for you at this point. Just let me call it out, I'll do it. And I don't even have the ACT running. But for graphics, who cares? Who are you bothering? As long as it's just on your end and no one can, and no one's being affected by it. And next one, a lot of these questions coming from really recently. Question, but first, hi Haps, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Do you think it would be worth it for the dev team to expand on the content the main scenario quest HUD icon can recommend to players? Context, as many players just returned to 14 for Get Ready for Stormblood, or Shadowbringers, I'm sorry, almost after a year of not playing. The MSQ icon was tremendously useful to help remember where to go for my job quest, and otherwise I would have had to Google them. I feel like the feature has much more potential to streamline the unlocking of new stuff. I think they should. I think there's a lot of things that it doesn't recommend for you to go do that it absolutely should. It at least recommends your job quest. It recommends unlocking the in-combat chocobo. It recommends the main scenario quests. But there's so many more things. It doesn't go anywhere near squadrons. It doesn't try to even encourage you to increase your Grand Company rank. And I understand that this is, I guess, a little bit more complex of a thing to add for these specific types of features. But it just doesn't seem like it tries. Palace of the... Actually, I think Palace of the Dead pops up on there too. If it doesn't, it really should be. And I know the main scenario itself takes you to the Hall of the Beginners, but some more formal, flair to get you to go do it for a new player. Yeah, I think they should expand on it. I think they will. I don't think there's a reason to stop expanding on it. You already have all the framework for the UI elements done. It's about fitting in conditionally what you want it to report back to the player. All right, let's take one with a shit ton of text. We gotta have a few of those here in the video. So what's going on? Hey, Mr. Happy, long-time viewer, but first time asking a question, and I am seeing it. So you got your wish. I have two questions unrelated to each other that I wanted to ask. So I'll ask them in order of importance if you don't have time to answer both. Luckily, your question is very early in the video, so you do get both answered. I had pre-ordered Stormblood back in the day and then hit a bad MMO burn right before it launched and never actually got around to playing. Now Shadowbringer's on the way. I'm hoping to hop back in relatively soon and wanted to know, with all the content to clear in between, what's in Stormblood between MSQ, Dungeon Trials, Hildebrand, do you think I'll have enough time to get through it all if I play at an average pace? I don't want to rush through it and burn myself out and not take in the story. What about Eureka? I know the relic weapon is tied to that tool. Will it be feasible to get through it in time, or should I wait to maybe come back to it for Glamour and Shadowbringers? So let's take this piece by piece. You want to know the most important thing to do, or at least if you'll have time to do all those things. So luckily Final Fantasy XIV, nothing in a bubble takes too much time on its own. Unless you're considering some major grind like a relic or like fresh Savage prog without like any knowledge whatsoever. So with that in mind, completing the MSQ, you'll have no issue doing that. Dungeons, you'll have to do those going through the MSQ, and there's less dungeons in Stormblood than there are in the previous expansion, so that's no problem. Trials, 4 Lords are fairly simple on normal. Whether or not you do them on extreme, that'll be up to how much time you have available. Hildebrand, always easy. You can knock those out in a few hours completely. So I don't think you'll have any issue doing these without burning out, even just approaching them maybe 3-4 hours a night, 3 days a week at most, maybe even less than that. You'd probably still get it done, to be honest. Just take your time and enjoy it. Eureka, on the other hand, very time consuming. I would probably not make that a focus if you're working on limited time. Maybe if you're still looking for something to do towards the end of May, early June. But other than that, no, they're definitely going to keep nerfing it. It's actually already comparable to being soloed. However, there's just a few little road bumps that they need to adjust before it'll be completely solo ready for the next expansion. I expect some more changes to it in the middle of May when we get the random balance and adjustments just for like the current Stormblood gameplay. And then I imagine when Shadowbringers actually comes out, there'll probably be even more changes to make it even more solo friendly. They always let you go back and at least mostly solo the previous relics, and this will probably be no different. As for question number 2, my other question is, what is your least favorite aspect of Stormblood, be it a class, questing, certain content mechanics, and what is one thing you're most looking forward to in Shadowbringers? What is one aspect you would most want to see that hasn't been announced already? What is my least favorite aspect? I think my least favorite aspect is playing certain ideas that I really liked in Heavensward a little too safe. One of the big ones for me is Heaven on High. I think they did improve it compared to Palace of the Dead in some ways, but they also didn't change it enough from Palace of the Dead. It was way too familiar of a piece of content where I really didn't have to learn much of anything new other than the large floors, which didn't really, I guess, add much to me in terms of enjoyment experience. So I'd say maybe that. For me, almost in its entirety, Stormblood has literally been better Heavensward. Less dungeons doesn't matter to me because dungeons are whatever anyway. The types of things they've tried to experiment with have been hit or miss. You've had some successes, you've had some faults, and I think that's perfectly fine. The main scenario, other than 4.5 Part 2, which was definitely the weakest point story-wise of all of Shadowbringers, since the actual initial story of Shadowbringers itself, that definitely could have been a little bit better. But overall, I've been really happy with Stormblood, especially as a hardcore raider. The biggest disappointment was no third ultimate. Really, that was the worst thing about this entire expansion. And honestly, Baldesion Arsenal, while it wasn't an ultimate, I had so much fun playing with all my FC mates that I almost never get to join in, I guess, en masse for, content like that. So the thing I'm looking forward to most in Shadowbringers, aspect you want to see that hasn't been announced already, I'm looking forward to Eden being a better raid story than Omega. It's that you don't have to try very hard. So that I'm already looking forward to big time. One aspect I want to see that hasn't been announced, the next Deep Dungeon, I want it to be more innovative than the current one with Heaven on High. It's a formula that works, but it is one I think they can be a little bit riskier on and experiment with a little bit more. Another one would definitely be a new treasure map dungeon. I want to make sure we have level 80 treasure dungeons, and I want to see if they're going to add a new mini game to those treasure dungeons at some point in the expansion. Next one on the list. Hey, Happy, first time YouTube bonus for this question. What's the bonus? They just said, I get a bonus, but there's no bonus listed here. It's okay. What unique job class would you like to see in 14? It would have to be a job or a weapon not seen in any prior Final Fantasy. I don't really have one in this regard. I know what my answer is of previous Final Fantasy jobs. That's always Puppet Master. But I don't think there's anything in particular that I'm like really itching to see outside of that. Reinterpretations of existing Final Fantasy jobs, those are very interesting to me. But other than that, there really isn't one. Would I like to see something with hammers or maybe dual axes or... I don't know. Like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like I don't have one that I'm like that ready for, I guess is the big thing. So it's not an easy question for me to answer, I suppose. This looks like it'll be another short one. Hello, Mr. Haps. First time asking a question, but I think I've been watching your content since Realm Reborn. Have a bonus of getting 3 ultimates and 5.x. You listen to the last answer. What's your favorite job of each role? Melee DPS, physical range, caster, healer, tank. Melee DPS, monk. Physical range, bard. Caster's tough, because I don't really have a propensity for any of them, but I know I'm most impressed when I see a good black mage, so I'll go with that. Healer, I enjoy playing white mage the most, but I personally think Astro is the best, and so that's definitely a favorite. And tank is warrior. That's too easy of an answer. Yeah, this is pretty easy. Yeah, those are all. What was it? It was monk, bard, black mage, Astro, warrior. That sounds, other than the monk, that sounds almost like every raid team ever to exist, so shouldn't be too big a surprise. Ooh, next one's a little bit chunky in terms of text. Let's see what we got. Hey, Happy, how you doing? You doing alright? I'm doing alright. I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. Long time no ask, but I have a little one to ask this week. Recently sat down and did the thing. I got into video game recording on my computer, but quickly ran into a little snag. I was hoping you could shine a little insight, even though it's not something you had to deal with personally. Well, we'll see about that. A short version is that as someone who relies on glasses to see, well, anything, you having problems where my webcam picks up on the computer screen reflecting off my glasses. I'm assuming there's a lighting issue. The only light in my recording area is a rather dull overhead light. I was hoping you could confirm my theory and if so, any recommendations to fix the issue and maybe even some nice lights to use to assist in fixing this. So I don't have this issue very often. I do have my gunners, but as you can see, while there is a reflection, it's not an insanely, I guess, annoying one. I will say that a lot of that is because of my lighting. I have some natural light that comes in from here. I have my actual room light, and then my monitors are a little bit below eye level, so I'm just looking back into the camera. One of the biggest things is having your camera too close to the monitors, because when I go like this, even though I'm like ducking down a little bit more, you can kind of see it a little bit more, but even then, the like natural light in the room kind of fixes it. So as long as you get more lighting that I guess kind of gives you light from multiple angles, it should help. And also when you're recording, you may want to consider even just turning, like I have 2 monitors here. Something I used to do when I first got these was actually turn off the monitor I was actually looking at. I would do all of my recording on a monitor that was like over here on the right or over on the left. And that way, you know, anytime I needed to check to see, okay, I need to restart that recording or I could make sure that this, especially when I'm doing a video like this, if I have YouTube here, I could put YouTube on this one, and then I could just turn this off like that. And that you can already see, like, there's a little bit on this one because of the monitor over here, but it did significantly reduce the amount of glare that I have. So it depends on what kind of content you actually are recording. And maybe it's content, maybe you could also decide you don't need a camera at all. You have to consider that as well. But yeah, lighting, you're definitely right. It's the lighting. And I would look to get anything that provides more ambient light into the room. Really bright lights can help, you know, just like the usual like box light or ring lights or things like that. But it's a hell of a road to go down just to fix the lighting on the glasses, as opposed to, and it's hot. It's really hot. All right, you're gonna sweat your ass off, and it's not gonna be pleasant. So yeah, just try a couple of different lighting scenarios, or maybe just changing the angle at which you record, and that should help. On to the next one. Hello, Mr. Happy. Question. I like the mark. This is a follow-up question, one from today, about the Trinity roles. I have felt for a long time that dungeons, and now even extremes, don't offer any challenge whatsoever. Do you ever think we'll see dungeons that are not just tourist zones, or the tank pulls everything we AoE it down? Maybe the enemies get stronger the more they are together, or special abilities and tactics. So first of all, let me first suggest that there are players that still do struggle with dungeons. While you and I may be people who have done it for years and very quickly tackle situations like this, there's a lot of players who don't have that immediate feeling that you and I do when we go into a dungeon. You have to consider them, especially when it comes to main scenario dungeons, because the main scenario is supposed to be the most approachable piece of content in the game. And then you have to have other dungeons that are on the same level as it, as we do with our roulettes, so you can't really take any of those and make them stronger. What's been often suggested is to do something like Mythic Plus in World of Warcraft, but it needs to be done very carefully because you can run into some gearing issues in terms of balancing item level rewards when it comes to stuff like that. So also I'd like to say that even if it was more challenging than that, I would still probably want to do wall-to-wall pulls, because that's what makes the healing and DPS balance on a healer so much more satisfying. It's also just a matter of being more TP effective and just being able to survive in the first place. There are some pulls that are still fairly dangerous, mobs with big tank busters. I know the second to last super large pull in Swallow's Compass, I'm sorry, not Swallow's Compass, Hell's Lit. Excuse me, Hell's Lit, Swallow's Compass. What is a fucking joke? Hell's Lit has a really tough pull towards the very end. Excuse me, I don't know why I just got the hiccups all of a sudden. Not that they couldn't do these things, but it would have to be gradual, and it would have to be something that they more adequately prepared the players for across all levels. They're not just suddenly going to make the level 81 dungeon like a shit ton more harder than the previous ones were. That just won't happen. Also, dude, Heaven on High can be pretty fucking annoying. Also, I'm of the opinion that just like random trash that doesn't really give you anything being like harder is like meh. Like, it doesn't really offer anything gameplay wise, I suppose, unless you're specifically looking for that kind of challenge, in which case you probably are better off doing a deep run of a deep dungeon or waiting for another feature to come down the line, or even just trying to find a group of like-minded people that can go in super mega undergeared. I've done that a few times as well. Also, how do you feel about extremes being farmed unsynced? I feel like they should stay synced if you want the mounts as a way of showing you actually worked for them. I feel like people miss out on these encounters since no one will farm them synced. Thoughts? No, there's no point in forcing those to be synced. Well, the fights that are designed specifically for the ultimate challenge of them, like the Ultimate Raid series, those I understand the idea of being synced more. You can also unsync certain encounters, and players just will not improve enough to actually do them until we have enough gear that it's so irrelevant it doesn't matter. I'm of the opinion only really ultimates need to stay synced or need to have no unsync option. That being said, I would like them to work on the reward structure for syncing, but I'd specifically like to see them work on it for syncing at an item level lower than what it is that you need to queue in. Not gonna lie, a lot of those bosses, even when you sync to those minimum item levels, are kind of not great. Are kind of not that much more challenging. It's also the issue of job changes they make, making older encounters really annoying to sync. You don't really know if your jobs function fully as intended at those given levels, and I'm sure some people know exactly what I'm talking about. So extreme primals or no, there's no point in leaving those unsynced, but I would much prefer if they would more reward syncing and also adjust the item level at which you are. I wish they could let you sync, but not to minimum item level. I wish they'd let you pick an item level. While yes, it doesn't really fix the problem that syncing in this game isn't very intuitive because of the impact that it has on materia, I still think that would be a good option to have, to be able to pick a specific item level to sync to for a specific content. On to the next one. Hi there, Haps. There are never enough content creation questions. I agree. With the 14 community constantly growing, so too is the count of content creators. Do you find yourself affected by that in any way, positive, negative, or just different? Do you think it has affected the overall 14 Twitch YouTube communities as far as creators knowing and respecting each other's content? I don't know. I guess I can't really speak for everyone on this, because that would be ignorant as all hell. For me, I find less of a need to do certain types of videos. Like, if I'm just not interested in an idea, I could do a video that could definitely get some easy views, and I see that from time to time. Like, there are a lot of things in 4.56 that I just didn't do a video on. I didn't do a video on the Yojimbo trial, I didn't do a video on Hildebrand, I didn't do a video about the story, I didn't do a video about the Shadowbringers trailer. I just mostly focused on the news, because there was, like, really something to dissect from all of that. I still have 50-50 reservations about doing some of that stuff. There's some other things that I thought about making videos for. What was one? 4.56 has some unique NPC interactions. I was like, oh, there's some people who are never going to know about this. I should definitely do it. But I didn't do it. I'm considering a Crystal Tower guide for 2019, one that's like 10 minutes long that covers all 12 bosses and some of the trash pulls in between, because you don't really need to know most of them, but some of them would be pretty nice if you knew how to do them. So there's ideas and there's things. I find myself less I feel like it's not so much that it's because there's other 14 creators. It's because YouTube is just not as attractive of an option anymore for me, the way that I spend my time. That's why the idea of those video logs and connecting with people more on YouTube, similar to the way I would a social media, I guess a more direct social media platform like Twitter, has been very interesting to me, because I feel like it could be, I guess, a revitalization of my interest in types of content that I do on the YouTube channel altogether. I'd also like to grow it just because I generally, so one of my biggest things going into 2019 is to start working on the future. I've started setting up like Roth IRAs and, brokerage IRAs and 401ks and stuff like that, but I still have a shit ton of debt to deal with. Between Mel and I'm not going to give a number, but we've got that to deal with, So as much as I want to do that for the future, I also want to take care of the now. And one easy way I could do that is to just start churning out more YouTube videos. Those things that I'm kind of reserved about making videos for, get over it and just do it, because there are people who are going to watch it. But it's a question mark for me still, because I don't want to say definitely that I want to do all those things, because YouTube as a platform has burned me out pretty big. So I'm just not as excited to make a YouTube video as I was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. All those are more personal sides, though. In terms of other Final Fantasy XIV content creators, I love the variety we have now. I love that there's so many more people who want to make content for the game, because it means there are people who love it, there's people who appreciate it, and there's people who want others to appreciate it and learn from it the same way that that they do. And I think that's really, really important for the sustainability of a game's community. So I think it's really, really good. I don't know how it's affected anyone else. I know there's plenty of other, Final Fantasy XIV YouTube broadcasters who are YouTube content creators who have definitely leaned away from doing consistent content. And then there's been others to pick up doing consistent content. So it's been a good mix of the two. All right, I think I've got time for 1 or 2 more questions. We'll see how long this one actually goes. Hello, quick question. All right, then I guess 2 more. With the release of the first heirloom-style gear, Aetheryte earrings, has there been any announcement of future heirloom gear in the future expansion? If no announcement has been made, how do you think the system will be implemented? Thanks for all the content you produce. Don't expect very many items to operate like the Aetheryte earring. Yoshi P specifically stated that the reason they wanted to do something like an earring was because it's not a very, I guess, coveted piece of armor when people are going through the leveling process. He says he doesn't want to do very many items like that because it kind of ruins the value of certain lower level items, especially as you're going up through the leveling, and then all of a sudden you just don't have to care. Basically the game is carrying you through all the early levels. The expectation is everyone will have that kind of gear when they're going through leveling, and he's not wrong. I know World of Warcraft even went so far as to, I don't know if they nerfed it or they removed heirloom armor, so you can't even do that anymore, because it does have a very it has a rippling effect towards the earlier parts of the game and the value of anything you might collect from that point of the game overall. So if there is ever another item that's like this, don't expect it to be anything more than a neck piece or a ring of some kind. And even then, I wouldn't expect one anytime in the near future, at the earliest, like another expansion from now. And even then, that one will probably just be an earring that does what the Aetheryte earring does, but up to level 80. Who knows? This one's pretty long, so I'll make the call about how if I want to answer another one after I do this. Good morning, Mr. Happy. Good morning to you too. It's afternoon here, but whatever. Hope all is well with you. Nighthawk here, and as always, thank you for your hard work and dedication to 14 and its community. Not a first-time asker, but I have an extra large pizza with double pepperoni and don't need the sausage. I just need the pepperoni. Got too much meat going on there, but all the same, I'll take an extra large pizza. Hell yeah. All right, I recently got into the raid life and I've been enjoying it. With so much to do in 14 and with the limited time I have daily to play the game, I don't want to get behind in raiding and Shadowbringers. Okay, that's a fair thing. Question, when you start a new patch, for example, Shadowbringers and future 5.0 patches, do you complete all of the MSQ first before focusing on raiding, Beast Tribes, hunts? Or do you do a combination of them when doing the main scenario quest? Just want to get a general idea. So right when Shadowbringers comes out 5.0, it'll be 2 weeks before the normal mode raid is released, and then another 2 weeks until Savage. So for the first, however many weeks, it's about leveling as many jobs and learning the jobs I have as best as I can, and then doing as many primal fights to practice those fights, to practice those jobs in their rotations as much as I can. 2 weeks in, collect some gear from normal mode, maybe start using those encounters on top of the extreme primals in order to practice whatever job I might be intending to play or try something else out. And then 2 weeks from there, that's it. It's all hardcore. I mean, it's luckily, sorry, I just knocked this. I'm going to put it down. Luckily, it's the only piece of content that releases 4 weeks into the expansion, so you can focus just directly on Savage raiding for the first major raid tier of the expansion. For 5.2 and 5.4, not the case. 5.2 and 5.4, you ignore everything that isn't the MSQ until you're done for the first day of raiding. I mean, that's how I do it. Literally, fuck else matters. Go into the normal raid, get it done, hop into Savage, whether it's pugging or with your static immediately. It should be your #1 priority if you're trying to be in the raid scene in Final Fantasy XIV. In odd-numbered patches, if you are interested in Ultimate, odds are you have a static for it already. You'll have needed to have cleared the Savage from the previous raid tier before you can go into Ultimate, and you're going to want to make sure you're as close to maximum item level as possible. You do get an extra couple of weeks before it actually releases. They release like 5.1, or in this case 4.1, and 4.3 for the last expansion. Then they wait 2 weeks, and then Ultimate comes out. So you do have a little bit of time to kind of shift your focus onto the meat of the patch, and then dive into that meat of raiding. Yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing in 5.x at least. Alright, and let's do one more, because why not? I can grab a question specifically that was in last week's video that they are asking again for this week. That way they don't feel like they have to keep doing it over and over and over again. Hey, Mr. Happy, first time asker, so have a bonus of a firm and slightly moist handshake, I suppose. I mean, it gave me the opportunity to do that for the video, so I guess no complaining. My question is, what is the appropriate action to take against someone who queues into content such as roulettes as a class, not a job, or without proper gear? I encountered someone like this in a run of Castrum in the MSQ. Their name suggested this was not a mistake, but sort of a meme challenge they set for themselves. But the majority of the party was against the vote kick, instead just letting them do their thing. My mentality was to vote kick them for not doing what would give them a free pass to doing harder content. Was I wrong? Should these people be ignored? I think it's about the intent of the individual. If the intent is to deliberately inhibit the group and just make it a shit time for everyone else, then, I mean, unless you can get it in writing, then honestly, you kind of just put up with it, or you try to get everyone else to kind of be on your side. If they're being that kind of a dick, though, odds are everyone's going to vote against them. If there's someone who's like, yes, I'm here as a class, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to put in everything that this class has available, so just give me a shot. I'm not going to let you down kind of mentality. I'm curious to see how hard they do try, because I'm going to be honest. I've seen people go as Thaumaturge into like 24-man raids and out DPS the Black Mages because they're putting forth more effort than the other people are. So there are times where I don't mind it. It all depends on the degree of effort. Now, if they're dead every 2 seconds and they're just memeing, lol, 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 yeah, I probably want them kicked, or I want them to be reported for griefing. You know, whatever. I don't even think you can really get away with that unless they're typing out like really bad shit in the actual chat. So, but then there's going in under geared, and this I think is more an onus on Square Enix, because yes, technically leveling dungeons don't have a minimum item level requirement, which is why you see it. But that's not an excuse to be just kind of ignorant to increasing your armor. But a lot of people are. There's been suggestions of putting minimum item level checks on leveling dungeons. A piece of me likes it, and a piece of me sees that there is a potential problem there. You know, people could end up just not getting loot and then getting hard stopgapped from the next thing they want to do. But I think that taking the time to get the extra loot is whatever, especially when you're leveling in the newer content, because you're guaranteed a piece every time you complete the dungeon that you just did. So as long as it's a leveling dungeon and not like a max level or a set to max level dungeon. So that's what I think. I think the gear is on Square Enix to create a solution. I think probably minimum item level for dungeons is probably a good place to be. That way people can't do that kind of stuff. And if they do, they're very clearly doing it deliberately. They like equip stuff to get around it and then nerf themselves to the ground to deliberately make it worse. And the other thing is just depends on the person's mindset. I would not take them to a Savage raid. I would probably not be happy if I got them in a normal mode. But if they try hard, I'm willing to put up with it. So that's how I am. It's all about intent. You know, I think that's pretty important when it comes to MMOs entirely. The gear thing, even if intent is bad, even if the intent isn't bad, it's just kind of bad manners to do. So Square Enix needs to be responsible for that one. But anyway, that's going to be the last question I take for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Thank you again, everyone, for asking. And again, if you asked a question or if you'd like to try asking a question again, as I didn't even get to scroll through all the questions because we had quite a few pop up, be sure to ask them on next week's video or on the video. Actually, I'm sorry, on this week's video, because you're watching this video now. You go to the comment section and ask. Simple as that. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. I'm going to go see if I can round up some Aloha footage and maybe do an origin story of my little fat cat. Anyway, thank you for watching. Again, thank you to our patrons. I will see you all next week. And until then, take care.